The era of the digital ID is facing some big difficulty. After many years of multi-billion-dollar corporations trying to force us to scan our faces and upload our passports just to use the internet, the community has finally reached what can be called like a breaking point, and the whole system is surrendering. So this is more than just like a minor like delay or a small like policy update. Like we're witnessing like what can be described as like a retreat of the world's biggest tech companies. From Discord's executive team like admitting that they failed, to international regulators finally sanctioning the very companies that were supposed to protect us, the digital high ground has been reclaimed. The matrix of mandatory verification is shattering, and it's because gamers simply like refuse to blink. To understand how like we're getting like some victories here, we have to look at the absolute like wreckage left behind by the companies that tried to enforce it. Like just weeks ago, Discord was fully like prepared to go like nuclear, announcing like a global mandate that would force millions of users to submit like age assurance or lose access to their own communities. They promised that it was for safety, and they promised that the data would be deleted. But we remember like the receipts, you could say, like the October 2025 data breach, where their third party vendor leaked the government IDs and passports of around 70,000 users onto like the dark web. And the community, like, they did more than complaining, like they revolted. Like, people, they definitely canceled their Nitro subscriptions, and they, some people migrated their servers, and they forced like the co-founder of Discord himself, I can't even say his name, to issue like a public apology, admitting that the company like failed at its most basic job. The surrender of Discord was just like the first domino to fall, you could say, because while the mainstream media was busy telling us that digital IDs were like supposed to happen, the actual infrastructure behind these systems was rotting from the inside. Yoti, the billion-dollar identity vendor that provides the face scanning technology for Meta, Instagram, and also TikTok, was just hit like a massive sanction by the Spanish Data Protection Agency. The AEPD they found pretty much fundamental infringements of data protection law. This is the company that pretty much was supposed to be the gold standard of privacy, and they were just officially labeled a liability by a major European regulator. The irony is pretty big. While governments in the UK and also certain US states were pretty much passing laws to protect children by forcing anyone to hand over biometric data, the very tools they mandated were proving to be a national security nightmare. These age verification laws weren't just born out of desire for safety. They were funded by tech conglomerates who pretty much want to consolidate their power by crushing any platform too small to afford these expensive verification stacks. And the broader community saw through pretty much the mask by targeting the vendors themselves and exposing the inaccuracies of facial age estimation, which NIST reports can be off by up to 4 entire years. The community turned the safety narrative into a corporate joke. This victory is being felt most heavily in the world of games big ones like Minecraft and Roblox. For example, for months, players in the UK have been living under the shadow of the mandatory ID gates just to use basic social features like chat and game invites. Microsoft and Roblox thought that they could just use the won't someone think of the children argument to justify a total surveillance dragnet. But then the reality hit, because on March 22nd, 2026, the age verification servers for Yoti literally crashed, staying down for over 14 hours. And millions of legitimate adult players were locked out of their own games, unable to communicate, simply because a third party algorithm couldn't verify their existence. This catastrophic system failure proved what we've been saying on this channel. Well, I've saying since day one. These systems are not ready for the prime time. They are fragile, they are invasive, and they are fundamentally broken. The recall era of Windows 11 and also the face scan era of gaming are being definitely rejected by people on the market just because they added zero value to the user experience. They only add friction, risk, and the constant threat of data leaks. The narrative kind of collapses when Roblox players see that the AI being used to scan their faces is also one that is definitely has some funding from Palantir and the US government. It's a little bit shaky over there. The most satisfying part of this collapse is watching the executives try to pivot. We are seeing a total rebranding of ID verification into privacy tools. Like they realize that the word ID is now like radioactive. Like they're trying to tell us that, on-device face scans are different. That the data never leaves like your phone. And that we should just pretty much trust like the process. But the trust is literally gone. Like we have seen the leaks from like Persona that pretty much show like military grade like background checks being run on like little 18-year-olds trying to join like a game lobby. Like we've seen like, all like the privacy invasive stuff, like all the stuff that these companies collect from browser fingerprints to like, try and analyze who you are. Like it's very creepy. The industry is currently in a state of total market failure. Like the venture capital is drying up for these startups because they realize that the primary demographic, like the people who actually use the internet, would rather like, try and quit a platform and scan their passport to enter it. This is the power of a boycott, you could say. Like Discord like delayed their update just because like, they realized that their revenue pretty much was in free fall, and like they realized that like a platform without like anonymous authentic connections isn't like a social network, but it's more like a prison, and nobody wants to pay like a subscription fee to live in a cell. So as we move into like the second half of 2026, the war is far from over, I'll say that. But the momentum is undeniable. Like we have successfully like, made people realize that the digital ID thing is kind of like a scam. Like we have forced like the biggest companies in the world to admit their failures and delay their most invasive plans. Like, the main character of the story like isn't just like, a tech giant. It's, the millions of gamers and just ordinary people who refuse to like comply. Like we prove that the internet, belongs to like, actual people who build communities, not just like people who try to like, gatekeep them. So yeah, the era of free gaming, it's under threat, and it definitely still is. And for a moment, it looked like it was completely gone. But like, there's definitely some pushback. And by staying vocal, like the tide has been brought back a little bit. But is it gonna stay? Well, that remains to be seen. And yeah, I also want to think about like my predictions for the future of where like this whole digital ID thing could go. Because honestly, this is a topic that I'm very interested in, like just like on a personal level. Because seeing how like online companies trying to like like disguise like data privacy invasions like digital ID, like it's pretty interesting and kind of shows the future that we're heading in. So honestly, I do think that there will be more pushback, but I feel like there will be victories, but at the same time there's going to be like more fights ahead, because companies like they realize that like this is just like too valuable. Like getting the hands of people's like IDs, like password, like is very like valuable information. So people will probably try and like well, not people, but like the CEOs, they're trying to disguise it as like something else. But yeah, that's just honestly like my thoughts. And I do think that maybe, I mean, nah, honestly I don't know. Like I just want to think of what can the future be. Like that's just like my general thoughts. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Have a great day.